All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce Derek Miller, who will be talking with us today about service workers. Let's all give him a big round of applause. Woo!
Derek!
And take it away.
All right. Welcome to today's Tech Talk, brought to you by Codesmith and Single Sprout. Geez, got to get those sponsors in. My name is Derek, and I'll be presenting Making Service Workers Work for You. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're sitting in an airport, reading a juicy Medium article, and all of a sudden it's time to board. It's all right, you think. You'll finish that article, that great, wonderful article on the plane. Well, you board the plane takes off. Finally, the announcement comes that once again, you can use approved electronic devices. You pull out your iPad, just so excited to get back to that incredible Medium article. And then, disaster. You had that article at the terminal. Why isn't it still on your iPad? You had it, and now it's not there anymore. How does this make any sense? What happened? Well, opinionated and very online developer Kyle Simpson, aka Getify, has a few thoughts. Break the tyranny of Wi-Fi connection. Every single page, no matter how static or simple it is, needs upgraded and smarter caching logic so that whatever has already been loaded in a browser tab stays available no matter the connection status. The solution, service workers. Service workers. What is this mysterious technology? If service workers mean that I never have to be denied my right to read any Medium article that I've loaded on my phone before stepping on a plane or subway, count me in. But before we can understand service workers, we need to understand what a web worker is. A web worker is a background script that runs independently of the web page. What does this mean? It means that a web worker will allow you to run JavaScript independently of whatever is happening on the web page itself. It's running in its own thread, which means even if it's a complicated or expensive synchronous process, it doesn't block what's happening on the page itself. The UI and other web page interactions won't be interrupted. Another important thing to understand about web workers is that there's no direct, web workers don't have direct DOM access, which at first might seem to be a limitation. But a web worker can simply employ the post message method to talk to the web page itself and get or send any information it needs related to the DOM. Finally, a web worker only exists while a web page is open. As soon as the user navigates away from the page or closes the tab, that web worker ceases to exist. Now, let's take a look at a quick demo of web workers in action. Here we have a very simple page. We have this little animation happening over here. I've got this like option menu over here. And then what all this page can do is it can generate pi to like a million places. But you'll notice the first time we're going to generate pi, we're going to do it on the web page itself. So animation freezes. I click over here, nothing happens. And that's because, while the web page was generating all those digits of pi, everything else freezes up. So the solution to this would be to generate pi with a service worker. So now I'm going to do that, and we'll see this animation continues. I can still interact with this. And then, when the web worker finishes generating the pi, it sends it in a post message back to the front end, and it's displayed. So, let's go back to our slideshow. All right. So obviously, you would never create a web worker to calculate pi. That's pretty dumb. But you would use a web worker for any expensive process that was actually useful, like processing large data sets, image processing, computing chess moves. The key takeaway is that when you want to use web workers to take care of any process that would otherwise keep the user from interacting with the rest of the web page. All right, now that we understand web workers, we're ready to talk about service workers. A service worker is a special kind of web worker that works as a proxy between the web page and the network and/or cache. Just like the web worker, service worker is JavaScript that is running in a separate thread from the main page. But now it has some special powers. The first power is that service workers live on after a tab is closed. So even if you close that tab or navigate away, service worker is still there and doing its job. The second power is that service workers have network access, which means service workers have the ability to intercept all network traffic coming in and out of the page. Here's an example. Let's say you're trying to order a pizza on the subway. Who hasn't done that? You're able to navigate to the order page, but you lose connection before you can submit your order. Well, what's going to happen? Are you going to get a pizza or not? Let's find out. The web page had a service worker. That service worker could hold on to your order and send it out automatically once you've established a connection again, even if you close the tab or navigate away to a different page. That's the power of a service worker. Now, you might be thinking that it's potentially dangerous to have JavaScript running on its own in your browser, even after you close a page. Well, have no fear. Service workers can only work over HTTPS, so you can safely avoid those pesky man-in-the-middle attacks. All right, let's take a quick look at the service worker lifecycle. The first thing that happens is a service worker gets registered by the web page itself. Once it's registered, it will begin installing itself into the browser. At that point, it will either hit an error, or if it finishes installing correctly, it will be activated. It will then sit idle until any network traffic happens, and then it will process that however it's programmed. The service worker will also respond to any post message messaging between the web page and itself. And then at some point, it will when it's not doing a job, it will just continue to sit idle until at some point it's terminated, either when it's explicitly terminated or after a set amount of time. Now, we've already discussed that service workers are primarily used for caching. You may be sitting there thinking, why do I need a service worker to handle caching? Doesn't the browser handle caching automatically? Well, noted service worker advocate Kyle Simpson clearly would not agree with this assessment. The cache system in browsers is horribly broken from top to bottom. It's a complete disaster of accreted exceptions and quirks. There's literally no way to fix it other than replace it with code you control in a service worker. Once again, service workers are the answer. With a service worker, you, the developer, have complete control of what is being cached and when, rather than leaving it up to the browser, which has no idea what your website does or how it should behave. There are two ways service workers help with caching. We have already discussed the benefits of how service workers can enhance online functionality. Also, there's caching for performance. One way this can manifest is through the use of pre-caching. With a service worker, you could pre-cache the 10 most popular Medium articles before the user even visited the site that day, making sure that those articles could be served almost instantly. All right, let's look at a quick little demo of service workers in action. Here we have a simple little blog page. I can look at posts. And now over here in our dev tools, we see that we indeed have a service worker running. So now we're going to simulate an offline disconnected experience for the browser. We see we've got a little notification up here that we've been disconnected. But even though I have no online connectivity at all, I'm still able to view these posts because they've automatically been cached by this service worker. Service workers aren't limited to helping just with caching. They allow for the integration of push notifications, just like a native app would, meaning that you could get alerts and updates from a website even without visiting it. But as anytime we talked about push notifications, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you do decide to use a service worker for push notifications, make sure the user actually wants to be notified. Otherwise, they're just going to disable push notifications for your site and you'll never be able to use them again with that user. Background sync. just like in our pizza ordering example, this is where data is stored on the browser temporarily until it can establish a better connection and complete any sort of request that is required. Next, service workers are employed in the creation of progressive web apps. PWAs allow the developer to bring many features and functionalities of native apps to web applications. Other features coming soon for service workers are periodic sync. Periodic sync is basically just background sync, but set at regular intervals instead of just a one-time thing. Also, geofencing. This would be any sort of functionality that triggers specific behavior or actions based on a location. Now we come to the all-important question of what companies are making use of this marvelous technology. Well, I think noted service worker evangelist Kyle Simpson would probably tell us we're actually asking the wrong question. We should be asking, what companies should use service workers? Kyle Simpson writes, every site on the web needs, at minimum, a caching first service worker to keep static already loaded content reloadable when offline. The same way every site needs HTTPS. In fact, browsers should just start providing a default service worker to any non-service worker site. Kyle makes a compelling argument. Why aren't more companies using service workers? The only conclusion to draw is that companies aren't considering the user experience of users with limited or no connectivity. But we all know that they're not considering this because when I go to the airport and start reading my Medium article and I get on the plane, I can't see that article anymore. And that makes no sense. With service workers existing, that should never happen. Why should it not be a top priority for a developer to provide the best experience possible for any user, regardless of their connectivity status? And the best tool for that job is service workers. Here are some resources, additional resources you can check out. Do you all have any questions?
Before we get into questions, let's all unmute ourselves and give Derek a big round of applause. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Derek?
I do actually. So really good, really clear presentation. By the way, kudos and awesome demos. My question was more like, how would you add a service worker to your site? Like, is it something that goes into, is it a script that goes into your HTML, or is it a separate file altogether?
So, I mean, you could add it in the HTML just like any other JavaScript, but you would just put it in your JavaScript, somewhere in your JavaScript, and it's, I forget the exact method, but it's just like service worker.register, and then you just sort of link to a file, which would be the JavaScript that you would probably just call like service worker.js, because it's literally just JavaScript, and just the browser knows there's a special method that allows you to tell the browser basically, hey, this is my job, this is my service worker script that I want you to run in a separate thread from the web page itself, and it's associated with that web page.
Cool. So I think you mentioned this in your presentation too, but I might have, my connection was cutting out actually at some points. But what other capabilities can you get besides caching with service workers, or is there any?
Yeah, let's just go back to that page. To a large extent, they all in general revolve around caching, but one of them is push notifications. So the ability to, when you get those little alerts, like on your phone saying like, hey, I don't know, there's a new article you might want to check out. With service workers, even if you're not on that website, the service worker could, the server could have an update and try to send you a message, and that service worker that's still running in your browser could then, give you that little push notification.
Cool. Good job, man.
Any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, let's all unmute ourselves and give Derek one last round of applause.
Yeah, Derek.
Good job, Derek.